For 10,000 years, Alaric has walked the earth cursed with immortality, searching for the soul that could break his torment. When he finally finds her, she is not awake to welcome him. Lily, a kind and gentle young woman, lies trapped in a coma after a tragic accident. To her family, she is a sleeping shell. But to Alaric, she is radiant, her soul wandering between life and death, glowing like a star in the ruins of forgotten dreams. Every night, Alaric enters her dreams, where their bond deepens and Lily slowly remembers pieces of a past life where she once gave everything to save him. But the dream world is not safe. A wraith, a predator of souls, lurks in the shadows, determined to consume Lily's light and bind her forever. Worse still, Alaric's rival, Kael, once his brother and now a cursed immortal, emerges to claim her as his own. As Lily's body fades in the waking world, she discovers her true gift, a soul light powerful enough to sever curses, but at the cost of her own life. With Alaric by her side, she must decide whether to sacrifice herself once again or fight to reclaim both her life and their love. Their choices ignite a battle of blood and fire, shadow and light, where the price of freedom may be everything. But love this deep does not end with curses. It endures. Even when the dream shatters, she sleeps in a coma. He has searched for her for 10,000 years. Bound by fate, haunted by dreams, Lily and Alaric discover a love that transcends lifetimes. But with a rival vampire and a soul-devouring wraith closing in, only Lily's hidden power can break the chains of the past. Will she awaken to love or burn her soul to save him? Eternal Slumber is a dark, romantic tale of curses, sacrifice, and the kind of love that refuses to die. Chapter 1: 10,000 Years of Searching. One night that changed everything. The world had changed too many times for Alaric to count. He had watched civilizations rise and crumble, watched mortals live, love, and die in the blink of an immortal's eye. Stone became steel, castles became skyscrapers, faith turned into machines, and still, through every century, every revolution, every war, he remained, cursed, alone, immortal. His footsteps were soundless over the damp forest floor, his cloak trailing like smoke behind him as he walked under a pale moon. The air carried the scent of rot and rain, the kind of scent that stirred ancient memories buried deep in his bones, the kind that whispered to something older than time. Something was calling him, not with words, but with pull, like a thread tied to the center of his chest, tugging him eastward, toward the hills above the old village. The place was forgotten, tucked between the edge of the wilds and the remains of a crumbled estate. He stopped at the edge of the clearing and stared. The mansion was a ruin. Broken stone pillars jutted from the earth like teeth. Ivy and moss blanketed the ground. The remnants of what once had been a garden were now twisted branches and shattered fountains. Time had claimed everything, almost everything, because someone stood there, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Alaric's breath caught. It had been centuries since anything surprised him. But this girl, she stood barefoot on the cracked marble of the grand staircase, wrapped in a flowing white nightgown that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. Her long dark hair fell in soft waves down her back, swaying slightly despite the stillness of the air. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply watched him, and he watched her. His first instinct was to believe she was a ghost. Souls like her often wandered ruins, reliving memories, trapped in the last place they had felt alive. But this girl wasn't aimless. She saw him. That should have been impossible. No spirit had ever looked directly at him like that. "I see you," she whispered. Her voice was like music underwater, soft, distant, impossible. Alaric took a slow step forward. "You shouldn't be able to." The girl's eyes widened. She took a single step back, her glow dimming just a little. "You're not supposed to see me." He visited again the next night, and the night after that. At first, he told himself it was curiosity. Ghosts didn't talk, not like she did. Ghosts didn't feel alive, but she did. Each night she returned to the ruins. Sometimes she stood in the old ballroom, dancing silently to a melody only she could hear. Sometimes she walked the garden paths, staring at the stars. Sometimes she sat on the stone fountain and hummed lullabies with no name. They began to speak. Not much, not enough, but just enough to make his heart, a thing long thought dead, start to ache. She never gave him her name. She didn't remember it. She didn't remember how she came to be there. She only knew this place, and the strange, shadow-eyed man who visited her after midnight. Alaric began calling her Starling. "Why Starling?" she asked one evening, seated on the balcony rail with her legs swinging over the edge. "Because you're small and bright, because you don't belong in the dark." She smiled at that. And he, who had lived 10 millennia without joy, felt something crack open inside him. But something wasn't right. She wasn't like the other spirits. They faded over time. She didn't. In fact, she seemed to grow stronger, more present the more he visited. She began to ask questions. She touched things. She started to dream. And then one night, it happened. He fell asleep. He hadn't truly slept in 100 years. But that night, in his manor high above the village, he closed his eyes, and when he opened them, she was there. Not in the ruins, not as a ghost, but in a dream. A field of wildflowers stretched for miles under a violet sky. Lily, the girl, stood in the center, barefoot, her dress fluttering in the wind. She looked different here, more real, more alive. "Is this your dream or mine?" she asked, turning to face him. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know." She tilted her head, studying him as though seeing him for the first time. "I know you," she said softly. His throat tightened. "You do?" "I don't know how, but it feels like I've known you forever." He reached out a hand, expecting her to disappear, but she didn't. She touched him, warm, solid skin on skin. The world seemed to still around them. "I'm not dead," she whispered. "I know," he said. "I don't think I ever was." Alaric awoke with a jolt. The fire in the hearth had long since died out. His skin burned where she had touched him. He could still smell her. Jasmine, wild honey, rain. This wasn't a haunting. This is a soul, alive but lost. Somewhere out there, a girl named Lily was trapped, and her spirit, her dreams, were calling for him. For the first time in centuries, Alaric rose with purpose in his heart. He was going to find her, and he was going to bring her home. Chapter 2. The first time she smiled at him, Alaric forgot he was cursed. It was a small smile, shy, uncertain, as if her soul hadn't remembered how to form joy, but it shattered something inside him. The ruins around them, with their decaying stone and thorn-choked vines, suddenly felt warm, alive, as if for a heartbeat the world had remembered beauty. "You're always watching," she said that night, her voice soft as candlelight. "Why?" He hesitated. "Because you're the only thing I've seen in centuries that makes me believe I haven't gone mad." That made her laugh. The sound, fragile, echoing, cut through the cold in his chest like the first dawn after winter. She twirled slowly on bare feet, her dress rippling around her legs like water. "I don't think I'm real," she whispered. "But I feel like I'm dreaming. Maybe you're part of it." "No," he said, "you're not dreaming." "Then what am I?" Alaric didn't know how to answer. Not yet. Not until he was certain, because the truth terrified him more than any demon he'd ever faced. Lily, if that was truly her name, didn't remember much. Each night, she appeared in the same place, the grand staircase of the ruined estate. It was always moonlight here, always the same quiet breeze rustling the ivy-covered walls. Time did not pass in this place. The moon never shifted, the stars never blinked. But she was changing. Each visit, she became more solid, her skin, once translucent, had warmth now. Her steps left echoes. Her reflection showed up in the cracked mirror near the ballroom. Ghosts didn't change. Ghosts didn't grow stronger. Alaric had seen enough restless souls in his eternal life to know one truth. They only faded. But she was anchoring, becoming real, alive. It made no sense. Spirits didn't return to life, and yet here she was, humming tunes she didn't remember learning, quoting poems she didn't know she knew. She was a puzzle made of broken glass, reflecting pieces of another life. Sometimes she wept in her sleep. Other nights she wandered alone until he found her. But one thing remained constant. She always waited for him. That night, the dream changed. The mansion flickered, shifting. One moment, they were standing by the fountain in the garden. The next, it became a hallway, sterile, white, cold. The shift made Lily gasp and stumble, clutching her head. Alaric caught her before she fell. "What was that?" she asked, blinking. Where was that place?" He held her tighter. "What did you see?" "Beeping. Lights. A woman crying. I was lying down. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak." She trembled. I think I heard my name." She looked up at him, her voice breaking. "It was me, Alaric. That was me." His chest tightened. This was no longer a theory. This was proof. She wasn't a ghost. She was a soul in limbo, caught between two worlds. When he left the dream realm, he was shaking. For centuries he had watched souls rot, wither, scream. But never had he seen one like her. A soul that grew brighter, a spirit whose heart still beat somewhere far away. He had to find her. And so he left the safety of his manor, traversing the country by moonlight. He followed the thread of her soul, an invisible trail that tugged on his essence like a string wrapped around his ribs. It took 2 nights, 2 sleepless, relentless nights of wind, blood, and shadows. But finally, it led him to a hospital on the outskirts of a quiet town. He entered through the back, cloaked in shadows, unseen by mortals. Room 213, and there she was. Her body was small beneath the hospital blanket. Her face, though paler than in the dream, was unmistakably hers. The soft wave of her hair, the curve of her lips, the faint scar beneath her chin. Machines beeped in slow rhythm, monitoring the life barely tethered to her fragile form. She was alive but lost. A woman sat by her side, her mother, most likely. Her hands trembled as she held a worn book. She read aloud, her voice cracking with exhaustion and hope. "She reads to you every day," Alaric whispered, barely audible. "She hasn't given up." He stepped closer, unable to breathe. "I thought you were a dream." The girl didn't stir, but the heart monitor spiked. Beep, beep, beep. Alaric blinked, leaned closer, watched as her fingers twitched. "I'm here," he whispered, voice thick. "I'm real, and so are you." That night in the dream world, he found her again. She was sitting by the old piano in the conservatory, her fingers trailing the keys without pressing them. She didn't look up when he entered. "I saw her," he said. Lily turned, her eyes wide. "I saw you." Her lips parted in wonder. "In the hospital?" He nodded. "Room 213. "I'm alive," she breathed. "I'm really alive." "You are." Her hands trembled in her lap. "Then why am I here?" "Because your soul is caught. You're in a coma. Your body sleeps, but your spirit wandered. It found this place, and me." Her eyes shone with unshed tears. "I was so scared. I thought I was dead." "I would have known," he said. "I've walked beside death for 1,000 lifetimes. You are light. You are warmth. You're not meant for the dark." Lily stood. Her bare feet made no sound on the cracked floor. "Why you?" she asked. "Why are you the one who sees me? Why are you the only one who found me?" Alaric swallowed hard. His throat burned with a truth he had buried for too long. "Because I've been searching for you," he said, "for 10,000 years." Chapter 3. Lily didn't return to the ruins right away. After Alaric revealed the truth, that her body was alive and her soul was merely wandering, she had disappeared from the dreamscape for nearly 2 nights. The world he once found her in remained eerily quiet. The garden overgrown, the air stale, the fountain dry. Alaric waited. He stood in the marble ballroom, listening to the ticking of a clock that didn't exist. The dream realm, once warm with her presence, felt suddenly fragile. As if without her anchoring it, it was beginning to unravel. And then, on the 3rd night, just as he was about to leave, he felt her. A soft pulse like a heartbeat. The air stirred, and there she was, She appeared on the balcony overlooking the garden, standing perfectly still in the moonlight. But something was different. Her glow was dimmer. Her hair, usually floating gently like silken water, hung limp. When she turned to him, her eyes were shadowed. "I dreamed of falling again," she whispered. "Only this time I hit the ground." Alaric reached her in seconds, cupping her face. "You came back." "I couldn't wake up," she said. "I tried. I screamed. I think my mother heard me. But the harder I tried, the more everything pulled me under." He brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. "You're not dying, Lily. You're fighting. That's why it hurts." "Something's wrong with this place," she said, clutching his arms. "It doesn't feel safe anymore." Alaric's jaw clenched. He had felt it too. The dreamworld was no longer just a safe space between realms. Something else had entered it. That night, the mansion cracked. Not physically, but spiritually. The walls began to ripple with strange pulses. The ceiling above the ballroom flickered in and out like a failing light. Paintings changed when they weren't looking. Once serene images now warped into screening faces and blackened skies. Lily began to feel cold. Not dream cold, not imagined cold. Real cold, soul deep. And then they heard it, a sound like scraping metal. Long, slow, guttural. Lily froze. "Did you hear?" "Yes." Alaric's eyes turned pitch black. He moved her behind him in an instant, his instincts snapping into place. "Stay close to me." Something was stalking them. They moved through the hallways of the dream mansion, now twisted and unfamiliar. The garden had decayed into ash. The piano in the conservatory wept red instead of notes. The chandelier in the ballroom had collapsed entirely. They weren't alone anymore. At the edge of the grand staircase, in the space where Lily had first appeared to him, stood a tall, featureless figure cloaked in thick shadow. It had no eyes, no mouth, no form, only a bleeding silhouette and a presence that crushed the air around it. Alaric stepped forward. "You don't belong here," he growled. The figure tilted its head slowly, unnaturally. "She wandered too long. She is mine." The voice wasn't human. It was like stone grinding against bone. It echoed inside Lily's skull, making her drop to her knees. Alaric bared his fangs, his power rising in waves. "You have no claim. The longer she sleeps, the deeper I sink my claws." Lily gasped. "It's been in my dreams, even before I met you. I thought it was just fear." "It's a wraith," Alaric said, his voice cold. "A predator of souls. It feeds on the dying. It waits in the dark for people like you, caught between life and death." The wraith stepped closer. "She is already fading." Alaric attacked. He moved like a storm, fast, silent, lethal. His body shimmered with silver fire, ancient power drawn from his cursed bloodline. But the wraith was not made of flesh. It absorbed the blows, laughing without a mouth, coiling its darkness around them both. Lily screamed as shadow wrapped around her throat, not choking her, but pulling her, trying to drag her deeper into sleep. "No!" Alaric roared, grabbing her hand. "Lily, stay with me." "I can't," she gasped. "It's too strong." "Look at me," he shouted, his voice cutting through the darkness. "You are not alone. I'm here. I found you once. I will find you every time. Fight." Her fingers closed around his, and something exploded inside her. Light erupted. Lily didn't understand what she had done, but the wraith screamed, not in pain, in fury. Her body glowed, brilliantly, casting a radiance that split the dark. For the first time, the wraith stepped back, its formless shape shivered, and then it vanished into the cracks of the dreamworld, leaving only silence behind. Lily collapsed. Alaric caught her, holding her tightly, rocking her gently. "You did that," he whispered. "You pushed it back." I didn't know I could. You're not just a soul. You're something more." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "I felt like I was floating and burning, and then it stopped." "That was your light," he said. "That was your soul refusing to surrender." When she awoke again in the dream, she was lying on the floor of the grand hall, wrapped in his coat. Alaric sat beside her, silent, staring at the broken window where dawn never came. "I think I'm waking up," she said softly. "I hope so. But what happens if I leave?" He looked at her, and for the first time, his eyes weren't unreadable. They'll tell you it was all a dream, that I was a figment of your coma, that none of this was real. Her eyes searched his, and was it? Alaric reached for her hand, pressed it to his chest. You're the only real thing I've ever known. Chapter 4. The ruins had never looked this broken. Moonlight barely touched the marble floor, fractured by cracks that spread like veins across the dreamworld. The roses in the once lush garden were withered, the fountain dry, and the chandelier that had once hung above them now lay shattered across the ballroom floor. Lily shivered as she stood beside Alaric. It feels wrong tonight, she whispered, like something is watching. Alaric's jaw clenched. He had felt it too. The wraith had not vanished when she cast her light against it. It was hiding, waiting. And now that her body stirred in the real world, now that she was closer to waking, it was desperate. Stay behind me, he said, his voice low, his eyes scanning the shadows. Always protecting me, she murmured, a fragile smile breaking through her fear, even when I don't know why. The air turned icy. A scream, not human, but soul-deep, ripped through the mansion. Darkness poured from the cracks in the walls, bleeding into the air like smoke. The wraith emerged, larger this time, its formless body coiling across the ceiling. She cannot leave, it hissed. She belongs to the dark. It struck fast. A tendril of shadow lashed toward Lily. Alaric intercepted, his hand burning with silver flame, his curse-born power fighting against the void. The clash shook the dream world itself. Lily fell to her knees, clutching her head as visions crashed into her mind, memories that weren't hers. She saw a kingdom, bathed in fire, soldiers clashing in the night, and a man, Alaric, but different, his eyes still dark, but filled with youth, warmth, hope. He wore armor and carried a sword marked with runes. Beside him, her. Not Lily, not in this body, but the same soul. A young woman in healer's robes, her hands glowing with light. She pressed her palms against his wounded chest, pouring her soul into him. You'll live, the woman whispered. You have to live, even if I don't. No, Alaric's past self growled, clutching her hand. Not without you. But she smiled softly. We'll find each other again. The vision ended in fire and blood. Lily gasped back into the dream world, tears streaming down her face. I knew you, she whispered. Before all this, I died for you. Alaric froze mid-battle. His heart twisted. She remembered, even if only in fragments. The wraith shrieked. Past or present, she is mine. She cannot escape twice. It struck again, faster, wrapping tendrils of shadow around Lily's body. She screamed as the cold seeped into her soul, dragging her down. Alaric roared, tearing through the tendrils with a surge of fire. His eyes glowed, his fangs bared. You will not take her from me again. Lily's hands burned. She looked down in shock as her palms glowed with the same golden light she had seen in her memories. The healer's gift, the soul light that had once saved Alaric's life. Without thinking, she thrust her hands outward. The glow burst from her chest, flooding the dream world with warmth. The wraith shrieked, its form unraveling in the brilliance. It recoiled, shattering into fragments of shadow that scattered like ash. The ruins trembled, walls crumbling, sky flickering. But Chapter 5. The dream world wasn't whole anymore. Lily walked through the corridors of the ruined estate, her bare feet echoing on broken stone. The walls flickered like candlelight, parts of them crumbling, others reforming. Sometimes she saw the garden in bloom, sometimes it was ash. Sometimes she heard laughter, sometimes screams. Her head throbbed with every shift. She knew why. Her body was fighting, pulling her back toward life. She could feel it now, heartbeat, breath. The faint tug of the waking world. Her mother's voice reached her sometimes, like a muffled song through water. But every time she followed it, something dragged her back. And tonight, Alaric wasn't there yet. She turned a corner and froze. The grand ballroom wasn't empty. A figure stood near the shattered chandelier, tall and broad-shouldered. Familiar. Too familiar. Alaric? She whispered, hope flaring in her chest. The figure turned. It was him, or at least it looked like him. His sharp jaw, his dark eyes, his commanding presence. But when he smiled, her stomach clenched. It was wrong, twisted. "Lily," he purred. His voice dripped with sweetness, but it scraped across her bones. "You're safe with me." She stepped back. "You're not him." The false Alaric chuckled, tilting his head. "I could be, if you let me. Why cling to a monster cursed by blood? He will destroy you, as he destroys everything." She shook her head fiercely. "No, you're lying." The ballroom darkened. The figure melted, stretching into shadow, its form unraveling into the wraith. "Do you truly think he loves you?" The creature hissed. 10,000 years he has hunted you, not for love, but for release. To end his curse. You are nothing but a key, a means to his freedom." The words struck like knives. Lily pressed her hands over her ears, trembling. "No, he's different. He cares. He needs," the wraith crooned. "Mead is not love." The shadow surged toward her. "Lily." The real Alaric tore into the dream, his cloak snapping in the phantom wind, silver fire blazing in his palms. He shoved himself between her and the creature, shielding her with his body. The wraith laughed, a chorus of voices rattling the walls. "She doubts you already. Shall I show her the truth?" "Silence," Alaric roared, unleashing a blast of light that tore through the darkness. The wraith recoiled, but not before planting its poison deep in Lily's mind. Its whispers lingered, echoing in her thoughts. "You are his curse breaker, nothing more." After the wraith fled, Lily collapsed against him, shaking. It wore your face. It said you're only using me, that I'm just a way to free you from the curse." Alaric stiffened, holding her tighter. "Lily, look at me." She lifted her eyes to his. "I searched for you because without you, there is nothing. Not even eternity matters. Curse or no curse, I would rather suffer 1,000 lifetimes than live one without you." Her lip trembled. "But what if it's right? What if I'm only here because fate bound us? What if you don't really love me? What if you only love the idea of me?" He swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "I love you because even in death, your soul found me. Because across centuries, you've chosen me, and I will always choose you, Lily." She wanted to believe him. She did believe him. But the wraith's poison lingered, heavy in her chest. And then another vision struck. And then she saw herself again. Another life. A healer kneeling in a battlefield, blood soaking her hands as she poured light into Alaric's broken body. Soldiers screaming around them. "Go," she had begged him. "Live, for our people." But he had refused. He held her as arrows rained down, whispering her name over and over until her last breath left her lips. And as her soul faded, darkness wrapped around him, binding him with eternity. His curse began that night. Lily snapped back into the dream, gasping. "I died for you. That's how it started. My death cursed you." Alaric's eyes burned with unshed tears. "No, my rage cursed me. I begged the gods to return you, and they twisted my plea. They chained me to the earth until I found you again. You are not my curse, Lily. You are my salvation." Her body stirred in the real world. Her fingers twitched. Her mother leapt from her chair, calling for the doctor. She moved. My Lily moved. Alaric, in the shadows outside the room, clenched his fists. He could feel her soul tugging, halfway between his arms in the dream world and her body in the waking one. The wraith's laughter echoed faintly, promising it would return. And Lily clung to Alaric, whispering, "I want to wake up, but if I do, what if I lose you?" He pressed his forehead to hers. "Then I will find you again, in this life, in the next, for all eternity." Chapter 6. The dream world was still scarred from the wraith's attack. Whole walls remained collapsed. The roses in the garden were ash, and the chandelier lay shattered across the ballroom floor. Lily sat on the edge of the fountain, tracing the cracks in the marble with trembling fingers. "Do you ever wonder," she whispered, "what happens if I wake up and you're not there?" Alaric stood a few feet away, silent, his arms folded across his chest. He had no answer for her, not one that wouldn't break her heart. His curse had taught him one lesson above all. Happiness was fleeting, and love was always stolen. But before he could speak, the air shifted. A cold wind whipped through the ruins. Shadows gathered at the edges of the courtyard. And then another figure stepped forward, tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes like polished silver and a smirk that dripped arrogance. Lily gasped softly. Who is that?" Alaric's jaw tightened. His entire body went rigid. Kael. Kael moved with the confidence of a predator who had never lost a hunt. His gaze slid from Lily to Alaric, and his smirk widened. "So it's true," Kael drawled. "You found her again." Lily's heartbeat quickened. "Again?" she whispered. Kael ignored her, circling like a wolf. 10,000 years, and still you cling to what was never yours." His eyes locked on Lily. "You feel it, don't you? The bond. You think it ties you to him, but you're wrong." Alaric stepped in front of her, fangs bared. "Stay away." But Kael only laughed, low and mocking. "Always so possessive, always so afraid she'll see the truth." Lily looked between them, confusion twisting her chest. "What truth?" Kael's smile turned sharp. "That she is not your salvation, Alaric. She is mine." Lily's vision blurred, the dream cracked, and another memory slammed into her. A throne room. Two men standing side by side, Alaric and Kael, brothers in arms, friends once, and her, standing between them, both reaching for her hand, both claiming her light. The kingdom had whispered of a curse, that only one of them was destined to have her. But in their rivalry, both had been doomed. She had chosen Alaric, and Kael had never forgiven it. The vision dissolved, leaving Lily trembling. She clutched Alaric's arm. "He was there. I saw him. In the past." Alaric's face was carved from stone. "Yes, he was my brother once, until jealousy turned him into a monster." Kael's smirk hardened into something darker. "She was promised to me. Her soul was bound to mine long before you stole her. And now, reborn, she belongs to me once more." "She belongs to no one," Alaric snarled. His silver fire flared to life, blazing across the courtyard. Kael laughed, stepping into the flames as if they were nothing. "You forget, old friend. I carry the same curse you do. You cannot destroy me." Lily staggered back, her hands trembling. "Both of you, cursed for me?" Neither answered. The ground shook as Kael lunged, their clash shattering the ruins. Two immortals, ancient and unstoppable, fighting not just for survival, but for the soul of the woman between them. Lily screamed their names, but neither stopped, and deep in the shadows, the wraith laughed, feeding on their rage. Chapter 7. The dreamworld was dimmer than ever before. The once bright marble ruins now looked like silhouettes of themselves, edges soft, color washed away. The roses that had once filled the garden with ghostly bloom, nothing but skeletal stems, reaching upward as though begging for light. The air itself seemed to resist her breath, heavy and thick, as if it wanted to drag her down. Lily sat at the edge of the cracked fountain, her body trembling. When she lifted her hands, they blurred at the edges, translucent as smoke. "In slipping," she whispered. "Alaric, I don't think I can stay much longer." Alaric was there instantly, kneeling before her. He took her fading hands into his own, his silver fire crackling against her skin, trying to warm what no flame could truly reach. His gaze burned with both rage and grief. "You are not slipping," he said fiercely. "You are fighting. Every flicker, every breath, it means you are still here." But she shook her head. "No. Every night I feel thinner, like the world is pulling me in two directions, my body and this place. If it keeps pulling, I'll tear apart." Alaric closed his eyes for a moment. He could feel it too. Her soul was unraveling, stretched too far by the wraith's constant feeding. Each second she lingered in this limbo, she weakened, while the shadow grew stronger. Far away in the waking world, monitors spiked and faltered. The doctors frowned at her erratic heartbeat. Nurses whispered words like decline and failure to recover. Her mother stayed at her bedside, clutching Lily's hand, whispering prayers through her tears. "Please, baby, please don't leave me." And though Lily couldn't answer aloud, her spirit heard. The tug grew stronger, one thread pulling toward her mother's love, the other toward Alaric's unrelenting bond. "Alaric," Lily said softly, her voice breaking, "what if I can't go back? What if I fade completely, and this is all that's left of me? A shadow, a half-memory." He cupped her face, his thumb brushing away tears that shimmered like glass. "Then I will follow you, even into nothingness. I told you, I will not lose you again." But even as he said it, doubt flickered in his eyes. He was immortal, cursed to endure. What if she disappeared forever? Could even he follow where no path remained? The thought clawed at him. The shadows stirred. A laugh, smooth, cold, too familiar, rolled across the ruins. "Kael, look at her, brother," Kael's voice taunted, though his form remained hidden. "She is unraveling, and it is your fault. You fight the wraith, you cling to her, and still she fades. She needs strength, strength only I can give." Lily gasped, clutching Alaric's sleeve. "I feel him, his voice is inside me." Alaric pulled her into his arms, shielding her. His fire roared higher. "Stay away from her, Kael." But Kael's laughter only deepened. "You will lose her. The light will gut her, and when it does, she will be mine." Lily cried out, her body flickering violently, almost vanishing entirely from Alaric's grasp. For one terrifying moment, he held only air. "No!" His voice tore from his chest, raw and desperate. He summoned every ounce's power in his cursed blood, pouring it into her form. His fire burned around them, wrapping her soul in a cocoon of light. Slowly, painfully, her body reformed, fragile but whole enough to cling to him. She buried her face against his chest, sobbing. "I can't do this," she whispered. "I'm not strong enough." Alaric bent his head to her ear, his voice low and trembling. "Yes, you are. You've been strong across lifetimes. You gave your life once to save mine, and you will not fade now, not while I still breathe." Her heartbeat, distant but real, pulsed against him. He closed his eyes, counting it like a prayer. "Hold on, Lily," he murmured. "Hold on for one more night. Hold on until we find a way to break this curse. You are not just my beloved. You are the only thing keeping me human." And though her body trembled and her form blurred, she nodded, clinging tighter. But deep in the shadows, the wraith whispered its hunger, and Kael's laughter lingered like a blade's edge. Lily's soul was fading, and time was running out. Chapter 8. The dream world was unraveling. The once beautiful ruins where Lily and Alaric had met now bent under the weight of shadows. The marble cracked in spirals, the walls buckled inward, and the sky above flickered between night and endless gray. Each tremor carried the voice of the wraith, its hunger vibrating through the air like a drumbeat. Lily clung to Alaric's arm, her body translucent at the edges. Her soul was fading, but in that frailty, something else stirred. A faint glow throbbed at the center of her chest, pulsing stronger each time the wraith attacked. Alaric saw it, and his heart clenched. "It's your light," he whispered. "The same gift you carried before. The only thing that can touch this darkness." Memories came in fragments, slicing through her like shards of glass. A battlefield. Alaric bleeding, falling to his knees. Kael's shadow looming behind him. And her, another version of herself, stepping forward, hands blazing with light. She remembered the words she had spoken with her dying breath. "I give my soul to break the curse." The vision ripped away, leaving her gasping in Alaric's arms. "I've done this before," she whispered. "I broke the curse once with my life, and now it's happening again. I'm meant to finish it." "No," Alaric said, his voice a growl. "You were meant to live, not to sacrifice yourself again." "You don't understand." Her eyes brimmed with tears. "The curse binds you. It binds Kael. It feeds the wraith. I'm the thread that ties it all together. If I don't sever it, we're all doomed." The wraith surged from the shadows, its voice dripping with venom. "Yes, she knows. She's the key. Let her light burn. Let it consume her. When she dies, I will drink the ash of her soul, and you will wander empty for eternity." Don't listen to it, Alaric snapped, drawing Lily tighter against him. His silver fire flared, holding the wraith at bay. It twists truth into chains, but Lily was shaking, her glow flaring brighter. It's right about one thing. I am the key. And maybe I'm not meant to live a normal life. Maybe my destiny is to break this curse once and for all. They stood at the center of the ballroom, the broken chandelier hanging like a crown of thorns above them. The wraith prowled the edges, hissing with hunger. Lily turned to Alaric, her hands trembling as she reached for his. "Your blood carries the curse," she said. "My light can sever it. But I need you to let me in, all the way." Alaric froze. He knew what she meant. To share blood with her, to open himself completely, meant exposing the darkest parts of his curse. If her light burned too fiercely, it could destroy them both. "No," he whispered. "If you give too much, you'll burn out. I can't lose you again." Her chin lifted, her glow intensifying. "If we don't try, you'll lose me anyway. I'd rather fight beside you and risk everything than fade into nothing." For a long moment, he only stared at her, the girl who had found him in ruins, the soul who had died for him once, the woman who now stood ready to risk herself again. Finally, he bowed his head and pressed his lips to her forehead. "Then take what you need. Take everything. If this is the way, I'll follow you into fire. Oh, whoa." Lily pressed her glowing palms to his chest. Alaric bit his wrist and let his cursed blood spill into her hands. The instant her light met his darkness, the world shuddered. The ground cracked. The wraith shrieked, twisting violently, desperate to stop them. Kael's laughter echoed faintly, distant but present, as though he too felt the bond breaking. Lily's entire body lit up, her soul blazing like a star. The ruins around them dissolved into pure light and shadow, the dream itself tearing apart, and in that blaze she saw the knot, the thread of fate binding Alaric, Kael, and herself together. She reached for it and pulled. Chapter 9. The dream could no longer remember its walls. Light and shadow had stripped the ruins to their bones, the ballroom reduced to pillars and sky, the garden to pale outlines of where roses used to live. In the center of the unmade place, Lily stood with her palms against Alaric's chest, his blood black-bright across her hands, her own body blazing from within like a small sun. "Let go," she whispered into the knot of fate only she could see. "Let go of us." The world obeyed by breaking. A soundless shock rolled through the dream, lifting dust that had never been dust, bending pillars that had never learned how to bend. The wraith convulsed at the perimeter, every edge of it tearing like old cloth in a storm. Kael's laughter wavered in from the far distance and cut off, as if a door had slammed on it. Lily reached deeper. The knot was not a ribbon. It was a root, dark and thorned, running from Alaric through her into a third body of shadow that was Kael's. It had grown there for an age, drinking their griefs, their longings, their wrong turns. She knew it the way healers know fevers, by touch and by the ache it left. "Now," she said, the word not a sound but a movement. She pulled. Pain answered like lightning. Alaric bowed beneath her hands, teeth bared, eyes flaring and then going human dark, losing their ancient sheen. The curse inside him writhed and screamed as it was dragged into the light. It fought to hold. It failed. For an instant she saw him as he had been before 10,000 winters, young and breakable, quick to laugh, quicker to draw his sword for the wrong reasons, good anyway. Then the image shattered, and the man in front of her groaned, not with the woundedness of immortals, which is the groan of stone, but with the true hurt of mortal flesh. "Lily," he managed, her name like an anchor, thrown into a rushing river. "I'm here," she said, though she barely had hands left to hold him. Her fingers were light, not skin. Her breath was light. Her bones were light. If she went any brighter, she would go out. The wraith lunged. It knew a last chance when it saw one. It came thin and fast, all hunger, aiming not for Alaric, who was spilling curse like a cracked cup, but for Lily, who was the flame that could be blown. "No," Alaric roared, and for the first time, his voice was not the command of a creature the dark obeyed. It was simply a man, and the dark should have ignored him. It didn't. His dwindling fire flared one last time, less magic than refusal, and checked the wraith's strike by an inch. Not enough to save Lily, enough to slow the end. Kael, Alaric shouted without looking, trusting the old, terrible bond to carry the call. Whatever is left in you that remembers being my brother, help her. For a heartbeat, there was no answer. Then the shadow at the far perimeter lengthened, stopped laughing, and moved. Kael stepped into the circle of light like a wolf crossing a line it had sworn it never would. His silver eyes were not kind, had never learned how, but they were clear. I do not do this for you, he said, voice a scrape of truth. I know, Alaric said, and bared his wrist again, offering blood he could ill afford, knowing what it would cost. Kael didn't take it. He stepped past, put his body between Lily and the wraith, and opened his mouth to show teeth the dark had sharpened. He bit the wraith like it were a thing that could bleed and, because sometimes lies consent to be true when belief is louder than fear, it did. It shrieked. Lily used the space the shriek made. She gathered herself to a point. Not wide light, not a soft and holy glow, but a narrow, decisive edge, like the bright line on the horizon when sea first admits to sunrise. She drove that line into the knot-root and cut. The curse screamed again, the sound dropping into silence, as quickly as a candle going out in wind. Alaric pitched forward, caught himself on his hands, choked, and laughed in the same breath, a raw, incredulous sound. Gone, he said, stunned. It's... He lifted his face to her, eyes wet, astonished. Lily, it's gone. Finish it, she whispered, because victory courts laziness, and laziness loves a last mistake. He understood. Together, without blood this time, without fire, only with what they had always had, they turned toward the wraith. It had no right shape without the curse to feed it. It wobbled, finning, reaching wildly for anything it could still own. Kael fell away from it, slashed open by shadow, smiling despite the pain, as if to say, you will not say I never did one decent thing. The wraith reached for Lily again. She wasn't there. She had become motion and decision. She had become the part of light that means no. She put her palm to the wraith's chest, where it pretended to keep a heart, and said, I am not a door you can keep. And the dark that had learned their names unlearned them. The wraith tore. It tore and came apart in ragged, fleeing strips that had nowhere left to run. They curled into ash that was not strictly speaking there, and the ash blew away on a wind that had been waiting for this job since the first story got told wrong. Silence. It was not an empty silence. It was a full one, like the pause between a question and the answer that will change everything. Lily swayed. The light that had been her dimmed, not out of defeat now, but because she had spent it. She had always been generous. It turned out she did not know how to be anything else. Alaric caught her. His hands were not indestructible anymore. They shook. They were warm. They were good. Easy, he said, as if ease had ever been in their vocabulary. Easy, little light. Come back. I can't hold two worlds, she murmured, eyes heavy, lashes bright with tears the dream could not decide whether to honor. I have to choose. Choose the loud one, he said, not trusting himself to say choose life without making it sound like an order. She laughed once, fond. You and your orders. I'm reformed, he said, and somehow made her believe him. Her hand came up and found his face. If I wake and you're gone. He put his mouth to her palm. I'll be where you can find me. She nodded, pressed her forehead to his for one spare kiss that was not fire or vow, only gratitude. Then I'm going. She turned, not away from him, but toward herself, and ran. The dream gave ground like surf going out. The pillars leaned and became memory. The sky folded like cloth and put itself away. Alaric stood alone in the place where there had once been a ballroom, his hands wet with blood that belonged only to men now, and the silence became the answer. Go, he said into it, smiling helplessly. Go be loud. And the world changed rooms. Machines complained before they approved. Lily's chest hitched, her fingers flexed. The line on the monitor scribbled a frantic word and then learned handwriting. A nurse said, oh, in a way. That meant I have watched a lot of things, but not this. Her mother did not make a sound at all. She simply bent until her forehead touched Lily's and breathed her daughter's air like borrowed courage. Lily, the doctor's voice approached carefully, as if the syllables might spook a wild animal back into the trees. Can you hear me? The woman on the bed took a rough, astonished breath and opened her eyes. They were just eyes, mortal and brown, ringed with exhaustion. They were also the first sunrise some people in that room had ever been granted. "Hi," she said, "because you say hi when you arrive." Her mother made the sound she had not allowed herself for months. It wasn't pretty. It was the most beautiful sound in the building. "Welcome back," the doctor said, and smiled without asking permission. Lily tried to smile and cried instead. The world obliged by blurring and then volunteering a tissue, a hand, a chair pushed closer. "My water?" She managed. "Yes, sweetheart," her mother said, already lifting the cup, already lifting her daughter. They went about the business of living. They checked reflexes and lights and names. Lily answered what she could. She did not mention the ballroom, or the roses, or the man who had taught her the difference between hands that grip and hands that guide. She didn't because the dream had folded itself away. With it, the bond that had let them speak without words. The space where his presence had sat like a candle in her chest was tender and empty, like a ring removed from a long-favored finger. That evening, when the room had settled into the ordinary clatter of a hospital at peace with its miracles, Lily turned her head toward the window. The sky there was city-lit and cloud-banked, no stars to name. Something tugged, not a thread, not a pole, just interest. She frowned at her own heart. "Do I know you?" She asked nothing in particular, and then smiled at herself for being strange. Her mother, dozing in the chair, stirred and reached for her hand in sleep. Lily threaded their fingers together and closed her eyes. Across the corridor, a man in a dark coat leaned his shoulder to the wall and tried to relearn how to stand like everyone else. His knees remembered thousands of battles and none of the ways to be easy. He looked at his hands, scarred hands, human hands, and laughed under his breath, not unkindly. "Aw," Alaric said to the emptiness that was not empty. "So this is what tired feels like when it's true." He did not go to the glass. He did not go to the door. He had promised not to grip. When the nurse came by on rounds, she nodded to him without fear, the way mortals nod to other mortals, recognizing shared weather. He nodded back, and the exchange felt like a small, undeserved gift. He left before midnight, because leaving was a muscle he meant to practice. Outside, the air had the bite of a season changing its mind. He turned up his collar and started down the steps. On the sidewalk, he stopped, set his palm flat against his chest, and waited. No answering flare, no tug, no echo of a song through walls. Only his heart, astonished to be heard, returning his touch from the inside. He smiled and kept walking. Days were counted by flowers. They arrived in waves with cards that said miracle and welcome back, and I never stopped praying. Until the ring looked like a garden that had decided to be brave indoors. Lily learned to sit up twice, to stand twice, to take first steps. Twice. She learned a body's pettier protests and its huge generosities. She learned what food tastes like when it is joy. In the quieter hours, when her mother dozed and the nurses traded stories so the night would go faster, Lily stared at the window the way people stare at the sea, listening for something beneath the ordinary sound. A week later, cleared to breathe air not measured by a machine, she stood at that window with both hands on the sill and watched rain cross the street in ragged, cheerful lines. Someone stood across the way under the awning of the coffee shop, not bothering with shelter beyond that narrow mercy. He was tall. He wore an old, too-good coat. He had the stance of men who know how to wait and have decided, against evidence, that waiting is not the same thing as loss. He lifted a paper cup to his mouth with a hand that had forgotten to stop being careful. Lily did not know his name. Her heart did something anyway. A small, inexplicable skip like a child who has seen a friend's silhouette and not yet recognized the face. The man looked up. He did not search windows. He did not bow. He simply lifted his eyes to the weather and breathed as if rain were a thing you meet halfway. The nurse came in behind Lily with a cheerful knock and a blood pressure cuff, and Lily glanced back with a smile. When she turned forward again, the awning sheltered no one. The street was only street. "Everything okay?" the nurse asked, fitting the cuff and humming to mark time. "Yes," Lily said, surprised to find she meant it. "It's loud and good." That night, when sleep came, It came without ballrooms. It came without roses. It came without a man whose voice had taught her how to be brave. It was ordinary sleep, and she took it gratefully, like water. But somewhere between one breath and the next, in the place where dreams are shy and true and seldom remembered, she smiled at a stranger with familiar eyes and said, quite clearly, "I'll find you." Outside an apartment he'd borrowed, because people in this century insisted on addresses, Alaric stopped with his key in the lock and laughed again, softer this time. "Be loud," he told the night, and the night, for once, did as it was told. Epilogue. Spring arrived timidly that year, as though uncertain it was welcome after so much gray. Lily sat by her bedroom window in her mother's house, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The doctors had called her recovery miraculous, the kind that made nurses whisper and chaplains smile with quiet conviction. But Lily knew miracles were rarely accidents. They were choices, battles fought in silence, promises kept. She traced her fingers along the fog on the glass, absent-mindedly drawing shapes, roses, stars, doors, none of them quite finished. Life was ordinary now, too ordinary. Birds at dawn, the chatter of neighbors, her mother fussing over her meals, as if food alone could keep her anchored. Yet in the quiet between breaths, Lily sometimes felt a presence, as though the air remembered him even if she could not name him. Alaric had learned to move slower, to stand in line for coffee, to take the long way home and listen to the traffic as though it were ocean waves. His body, no longer bound by immortality, tired in ways he hadn't known were possible. His knuckles ached when it rained. His heart raced when he climbed stairs too quickly, and he cherished it. Every mortal ache, every fragile limit. Yet every night as he lay in the small apartment that smelled faintly of old wood and dust, he thought of her, the girl who had given him back his humanity, even if she didn't remember his name. He told himself not to watch her, not to go near, to let her live without the shadow of eternity following her. But sometimes, just sometimes, he couldn't help it. He would find himself standing across the street from her window, a stranger in the rain, heart hammering with the simple miracle of seeing her breathe. Weeks passed. Healing settled into routine. Lily began venturing outside more often. Short walks at first, then afternoons spent in the park or visiting the small bookstore down the street. Each day, her body remembered strength, but her heart still carried a weight she couldn't name. One rainy afternoon, she ducked into that bookstore again. The smell of paper and ink wrapped around her like an old song. She trailed her fingers over the spines, searching without knowing what for. And then she saw him, a man at the far end of the aisle, tall and broad-shouldered, his dark coat damp from the storm. He held a book loosely in one hand, his other resting in his pocket. When he lifted his head, their eyes met. Something inside Lily's chest tightened, her breath caught, her pulse racing without reason. She didn't know him, couldn't know him, but her soul whispered otherwise. He smiled, small, tentative, as though unsure of his right to do so. Lily's lips curved before she could stop them. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," he replied, and his voice carried the weight of centuries. They left the shop together, rain tapping the pavement around them. Their steps fell into rhythm without effort, shoulders brushing once, then twice. Lily asked his name. "Alaric," he said, as if giving her a truth he had carried too long. The sound of it sent a shiver through her. Not memory, something deeper. She tucked it away like a secret. At the end of the lane, her mother called her from their doorway. Lily turned, waved, promising she'd be right there. But when she looked back, the man was gone. Her chest ached at the sudden emptiness. Still, she knew, without knowing why, that this wasn't the last time she'd see him. That night, Lily dreamed, not of ruins or shadows, but of stars scattered across a velvet sky. She stood in a meadow, the air warm, a hand brushing hers in the dark. She didn't see the face beside her. She didn't need to. Across the city, Alaric stirred in his small apartment, his mortal heart beating steady and fragile. For the first time in 10,000 years, he felt no curse, no chains, only hope. "Be loud," he whispered into the night. And somewhere in her sleep, Lily smiled. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through eternal slumber. Moonlight. This story of Lily and Alaric is about more than curses and shadows. It's about love that refuses to die, no matter how many lifetimes it takes. If you enjoyed this dark romance, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next chapter or story. Your support helps me keep creating and bringing these tales to life. And remember, some threads are never truly cut. See you in the next story.